Anti-government protesters took to the streets of Belarus for the third night in a row. This days after the top opposition candidate in the country's presidential election fled for neighbouring Lithuania. In a video statement, she urged her supporters to avoid clashes and respect the law. Election results released on Monday show Alexander Lukashenko won 80% of the vote, securing a sixth term in office. The opposition has dismissed the result, and the EU says the election was neither free nor fair.
Против выборов, которые были сфальсифицированы.
Ну, наверное, человеку что-то угрожало, раз ее увезли. Раз вывезли, значит, что-то угрожало. Муж ее сидит, естественно, мать детей, естественно, побоялись.
For more on this story, we can bring in our chief foreign editor, Robert Parsons. Good afternoon, Rob. Demonstrations continue over in Belarus. Is there any chance that Lukashenko can change course now?
No, I think President Lukashenko is going for broke, essentially, on this. He only knows one method. Democracy is not his style. He's not about to start talks with the opposition after being in power for 26 years. He's shown in the past, 2010, for instance, that he's quite capable of unleashing the forces of law and order in the most brutal fashion. And over the last 3 days, we've seen the same use of that brutality textbook. So I think it's extremely unlikely that Lukashenko is going to change course. Already he's talking about foreign interference, about people calling from abroad to manipulate the opposition, who he refers to as sheep, and says he's not going to allow the country to be broken up. So no, I don't think we'll see any change. The question really is, how strong is the opposition? How prepared is the opposition to stay the course in the face of the sort of brutality that President Lukashenko and his supporters have unleashed on them? We've seen interesting tactics by comparison with the past, a sort of decentralized leadership, making it harder for the police to crack down, for small groups moving freely across the cities, not just the capital, Minsk, it has to be said, but other big cities like Grodno, Brest, Vitebsk, and so on. That makes it harder for the police, but at some point, if they're going to get rid of this regime, there will have to be a degree of organization. And the minute the opposition starts getting organized, there's no doubt that President Lukashenko will crack down very hard.
Rob, the EU says it's, mulling action against those involved in the police crackdown and even those who potentially could have interfered with the vote. Is there any chance that international pressure could, we could have a recount, essentially?
No, I think it's extremely unlikely that there will be a recount. It is possible that the European Union, by exerting pressure, by threatening sanctions or by imposing sanctions, could in some way or other moderate the behavior of President Lukashenko, could try and facilitate some sort of rapprochement between the opposition and President Lukashenko, although it seems extremely unlikely at this stage. But the European Union is effectively thrashing around, trying to come up with an adequate response to what's going on in the country. There will be a meeting of foreign ministers of the European Union on Friday to come out with some sort of response. I think the fear will be that, they've got to do something. They can't just let this happen in the middle of Europe and not respond in any way, even if Belarus is not a member of the European Union. So targeted sanctions seems like the most likely response. But the fear will be that will push Lukashenko closer into hands of Russia. Russia, for its part, it has to be said, has got its own problems in knowing how to respond to what's happening in Belarus. Instinctively, President Putin no doubt supports the authoritarian approach of Lukashenko, but it will fear that this could be the same scenario about to be repeated as Ukraine a few years ago. So it will be wary about antagonizing a population which seems to have swung against Lukashenko. What sense is there in losing the support of the large part of the Belarusian population if in the future Russia is going to want good relations with Belarus? So it's a dilemma for the Russians.
We'll see what happens. Rob, thank you very much for that. Rob Parsons there.